Jackson headquarters with Dustin Jackson, crew chief Nick Kozak, and Dustin's mom, Debbie McMillan, for the third episode of Rev It Up Racing Show, brought to you by Parson Performance. How are you today, Nick?
Great. How are you?
Good. Dustin?
Good.
How are you, Mom?
Good.
One of the first questions I have is Dustin starting when he was, what, you were 10 or 11, Dustin? 10. Being a mom, like Dad's at work, so you stepped in for Brett. Being a mom, between being a mom, a banker, probably a driver sometimes, how are the nerves and how are everything when you're going into a race weekend?
Well, you just go with it because you don't have a choice. And you pray for the best, and Dad always wants him to go faster, and Mom always wants him to go slower. But you know what? You have to believe in what you're doing. You have to believe in Dustin, what he's doing. And the nerves don't get any easier, but you're pleased with the results, and again, you just have to believe in what you're doing. So.
And, like I said,
And I'm proud of my family for what they're trying to achieve and what we are achieving. So.
And would being north of border is even harder than being in southern United States, right? Being at this age, trying to compete and moving up, like where Nick, you've raced for years, where Dustin, like I say, has been doing it for 5 years, but Dustin, not against your driving, but being at 15, he might have a chance to move up the ladder, right?
Yes.
So being in Northern Ontario is a little bit harder than being in the southern states, right?
Oh,
with
absolutely.
all the traveling.
Absolutely. There's a big commitment. There's a big commitment from everybody who helps us out. A huge commitment from my husband, from Dustin and myself. But it's what we enjoy doing. So we don't look at it as, triumph that we've got to travel. We look at it as, oh, right on. When's our next show?
Yeah. If you could do it full time, you'd do it full time, right?
Absolutely.
Now, Dustin, with you being 15 now and been racing for 5 years, how's the respect with, like, say, with the drivers who are, like, say, 2-3 times your age? You've raced, like you say, Nick has raced down, at Laird and stuff like that. How's the respect when it comes to your age?
I get from the drivers.
From the drivers.
I've always gotten lots of respect from the majority of them. They always are very welcoming when I show up to a new series or to a new track. And most of them are pretty respectful, especially when they see what I can do and see that I don't wreck them and I know how to drive, right?
And it's something like the other day, I was at Kinross watching you, and you almost overtook Rick Ellis. You guys were fighting until the wreck, right? So it's something you're proving to the older drivers that you know what you're doing with that.
Yeah, both Kinross, we were having a hard time getting the car handling, and finally in the feature it was handling pretty good. Yeah, like you said, it was just tough luck. The guy behind us, he broke and he got into the side of me. But we've had a few things that went bad our way this year, and we've had lots of bad luck. But thankfully, last Thursday we've had some good luck. So.
I think say you won the feature at Laird.
Yeah.
And bringing that up with being the mom and Nick, like say being crew chief and stuff like that. I've been at the tracks in the last couple of weeks where you have other younger drivers driving, and the drivers are approaching the parents if they have a problem with the child. How do you deal with that as, like I say, as a mother or as a crew chief when you still have a younger driver where the drivers won't approach Dustin or the younger? How do you deal with that, Nick?
Well, we haven't come across that yet, but I would think that an older driver would come to either myself or his dad before they went to him, because I think that would be the right thing to do. That's what I would do if I was in that position. But he hasn't caused any major problems or anything like that, and I haven't seen anybody get mad at him yet, so that's a good thing, I guess.
And like you say, I was at Kinross the other day, and like I say, unfortunately you're involved in a wreck, Dustin, where do you vent if something like that happens? Or you were saying off camera that your dad gets pissed off? Or does Brett vent to you? How do you deal with it when something like that happens, Dustin?
People don't understand how much adrenaline and emotions they are in this sport. Especially what happened with us. It's different if you're in 13th and you get taken out. It's different. But when you're battling for the lead, you gotta just suck it up and bite your tongue because the guy broke. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like he meant to do it. And after that, I'm glad my dad stayed cool and everybody was, you know, we were emotional, but he sucked it up and enjoyed the rest of our night. So, I mean, that part of it was good. So, yeah.
Well, Debbie, with you being a mom and like say dad involved and like everything else, do you have to be the referee sometimes between father and driver?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And again, like Dustin said, the emotions are so incredibly high. And I've never been part of a sport where you can be on such a high and in 2.6 seconds be down at a complete low. And for Dustin, I'm extremely proud of him for learning how to handle that. As a mom, it's not as easy to handle. It's easy for me to handle when I'm dealing with father and son, saying, okay, guys, stop, you know, break it up. But at that time, you got to let them vent. It's just how they vent and who they vent to. But absolutely, it's difficult. And as a mom, I don't want to see anything happen to my son. I don't want to see anything happen to the car. And I don't want to see my son go through that emotional roller coaster. But that's part of
the sport.
part of the sport.
Participating in.
So.
Oh, Nick, regarding changes to area tracks, is there things that could change that would improve drivers and more drivers coming to the track?
Yeah, if there was more consistency on everything, it would.
The rules, black and white.
Yes, all that, because there's too many gray areas, and some guy gets away with something and another guy doesn't, and
So different rules for different people, and that's some that has to
yeah,
has to get away with.
that's the main problem I see.
Just it needs to be 2015. The race rules here they are,
That's right.
and stick with the way it is.
Yeah, if everything was black and white, nobody would have nothing to complain about.
Complain about. And like you say, and that's the next question is about, like you say, consistency in complaining. Should every track have somebody, like say a crew chief, or if it's dad who's Brett, or yourself, or it could be a wife if it's just a husband and wife down there, or a fiance, who can talk to the tech person other than the driver?
Yeah, I think there should only be one person. Like they're starting to do that now. Only one person's allowed at the scales when the car comes up on the scales.
Which you usually.
But I would like to see a drivers' association myself, because then there would be no complaining to the officials. Who's ever in charge of? If there was a drivers' association, there would be a representative from each class.
Yep.
And if there was a problem, they go to the representative, and then he goes to an official.
And that's the biggest thing. I've talked to drivers, and I go to a lot of other sports, and I'll use, if it's Laird dealing with Donnie, or the tech guy, or the Fox brothers and Jerry at Kinross, where if you have 4 divisions and say a president, so you have 5 guys, is if you're the representative, say for Factory 4, I come to you as a driver and talk to you, and you deal with it, instead of having 40 guys calling Donnie the next day or calling Jerry the next day and say, this is what's happening. You're only really dealing with 5 people, not 40 to 50 people, right?
That's right.
And it benefit the
And that
sport.
would help a lot. And like, some guys will just go, if they see any official, like we have a tech guy, we have lineup guys.
Everybody with
guys
a
that
great
mention
green
on the
jersey,
racetrack
great
and that,
green
so there's
jersey.
3 or 4 officials in the pits. They'll go to any one of them because they're mad and they want to voice their opinion.
We know what they look like as a bright green
So
t-shirt.
this guy, okay, he's the tech guy. And he's complaining about the flag man. He's standing there looking at the guy like, what's that got to do with me?
Yeah.
Just because I'm an official doesn't mean.
He doesn't even know what's going on sometimes.
Right. He's not even, half the time he's not watching the race because he's busy at the scale, so.
Yeah.
And even if he did, he can't overrule the flag man. Like, so that's what I mean. Just because you're mad and you want to voice your opinion right now, you go to your representative and then he goes and deals with it. And it'd be a lot calmer conversation.
So it's like minor sports, a 24-hour rule to a point, right?
Kind of, so
Where
yeah.
guys get to calm down and then they can talk.
I think it would make things a lot better.
And like I say, might have more drivers come out because it's consistent and everything else.
Yeah. Yeah, if there was consistency and all that, and there'd be a lot of good report from it, so people would come back.
And then in the long run, that puts more people in the stands, right?
That's right.
So, Dustin, with you being still young, being 15 years old, and you have like Anthony Manarino and Chase Wilson, and even I know Dawson Wilson's talking about maybe getting back on the track. Where do you recommend for young guys? And I have a 17-year-old that's him and Hein go driving. Do you recommend them starting at Factory 4 and learning from there and moving up, or there's not enough drivers to have their own class right now in this area? So as a young guy, what would you recommend? Because you've learned it over the last 5 years.
Factory 4 is a good division to start in, and I started there, and what I see is instead of running, say a class with, say you were getting in the factory stuff, and there was only 3 cars in that class. That's not the best thing for your son or your daughter. But a Factory 4 class, and it's kind of low on car count too right now, but they're still at 10 cars, that's good. At one point they were at about 25. And that was the class again at the time for an upcoming driver that wanted to learn experience. Because the best experience you can have is racing side by side with someone or following someone. You know what I mean? Like, if you go out there, you can practice. You can do, if you've never been in a car before, and you go do 400 laps on a track by yourself, wait till you get in traffic.
Well, that's exactly
It's unbelievable.
I'll use as an example is my stepbrother Mark Loxo. He's doing the Laird Modifieds. He's starting at the back most of the time. He went to Kinross for the first time a couple of weeks ago, and they said, "Do you mind starting at the back?" Layla Alm, learning in a new division, she's starting at the back, even if she's qualifying maybe 2 or 3 from the back. But they're back there to get some seat time and to learn in that division. So really, it's instead of going to wreck your car and wrecking someone else's car, you learn as you go, right? So, and I know, going back, we're still using age-wise. Dustin, you're only 15, but if you could look back 5 years ago when you first started, is there something that, like you said, you might change?
Yeah, the very first year, we had a $200 4-cylinder, and that's all we could afford at the time. And well, it was just something to get me started. My dad didn't know what to expect. He threw me out there on the track with a 10-year-old, make sure I was safe, but he threw me out there on the track.
Guinness Book of World Records.
Yeah, exactly. And I just learned from there. And he told me, stay low at all times because you're going to get lapped. And I told him, no, I'm going to win, Dad. I'm going to win. No, you're not. You're going to get lapped. He said, just stay at the bottom of the track and run your line. And when a car's beside you, don't panic. Just stay, run your line. And that's what I did. And I never ever made contact with anybody that whole year, I don't think. And but about 7 or 8 races in, I bugged my dad from about the 2nd or 3rd night out. I said to him, "This car's slow. It sucks." He goes, he used to tell me, he used to tell me, you're 10 years old, Dustin, you just can't drive yet, and you got to learn. You got to learn how to drive with this car. Well, as soon as he got me a new car, we finished 2nd in the feature out of like 15 cars. I said, "There you go, Dad, I told you." And so now he's getting all excited about it. So Nick and my dad and Terry Burdash and Rob Sartini and Kevin Oinkle, and they're over there helping, trying to get this car faster. And the next week was Cornfest weekend. Won the heat in the feature. I go, "There we go, Dad. There we go." And that's probably my most memorable moment also, too, that one. That was the most fun weekend I've ever had between racing and camping and friends and family. They were all there. We were camping and we had bands playing. That was my favorite weekend.
And that's going back with drivers helping drivers and everything, right?
Yeah, exactly. Oh yeah, everybody that helps us out is a driver or a pit crew member or something. Nick, he's been with our team for, even when he was racing, he'd still come over and help us out and try and get our car ready. Kevin Oinkle, like I said, Rob Sartini, Terry Burdash, Terry McMillan especially. He was my spotter last year. Awesome job. And they all help out and they do a great job, and that's what part of most of my success has been is because of them.
Now, Nick, and it's something like, I don't know if you've done it, Dustin, but Nick, with racing over the years, at the smaller tracks like Kinross you can, but Laird you can't, would being, like you say, having a spotter with, like you say, radios or mirrors, would that help drivers?
Oh, I think so, but I've always wanted something in a car, or like a mirror or a radio, because when you're out there by yourself, you're using the whole racetrack. That's the fastest way around the track. Right to the top, and then right down to the bottom. Now, you don't know if a guy catches you. So you're using the whole track.
You don't have a mirror or a spotter, right?
Right. And until that guy gets right up beside you, or gives you a bump, that's what I used to do, and that's why I did it most of the time.
Let you know
Guy a
you're
little
there.
bump,
Yeah.
not to spin him or wreck him or anything like that, just to poop. He knows I'm there now, so now give me a lean. Because if you don't, the next one's not going to be as nice as that one. That's how that works, you know.
And now, Dustin, you've raced different series. Now, some series you can have mirrors, you can have radios, and some you can't. I'm saying, within the 5 years of racing, would you prefer to have a mirror and a spotter most races if you could?
My dad tells me that I should never have a mirror. He said it's the worst thing to have because you get caught looking in too
But
much.
you've proved him wrong other times, though.
Yeah, 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 that's true. But I think spotters. We only have a spotter because it's for safety reasons too. I mean, safety reasons. If your car's on fire, he can let you know that. Sometimes if there's
John
fire in
Carter,
the back
too,
or
good
something.
story.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure he knew there was a fire. But and what last year when we raced Oscar, it was either having a spotter, so your own picture member, or you had to listen to the guy up in the tower for safety reasons, right? But where the way we seen it was, there's 20 cars out there. You're racing 20 cars every night, and that's why they have them. So yeah, like Nick said, there's 20 cars. Not everybody's going to give you a bump all the time. They're just going to drive it in and slam into the side.
Yeah.
That's how some people do it, and I've seen a lot of people do it.
And it happened 2
It
weeks
happened
ago
to me.
there, right?
Yeah.
So,
And
and Temperance Flare.
yeah, and like he was saying about giving a guy a bump. Well, I had to do that to Kevin Oinkle because, like he said, we don't have spotters at Laird and Kinross and that. And at Kinross, I think they almost should be mandatory now because they're getting 20, 21 cars modified on
So, I
some
mean,
regular
there's 20
basis.
cars, right?
But so far, they've been pretty clean about it, and until they start getting rough. If it starts getting really rough, then that's when you gotta, I think, start having spotters. But mirrors, I don't like the idea of mirrors. I think they're just for blocking mirrors.
Yeah.
But
No,
but like Nick said, so you know the guy's right there. But I know that if I see a guy behind me, I'm not gonna let him pass me. And Nick's the same way.
And coming from, I was standing in the pits at Laird last week, and like I say, you and Oiko were fighting for first in the feature. Was there a bump, or did you just get on him and pass him?
Well, I was trying to get a run on him going on the outside, and I mean he has a lot more horsepower than this car has with the tire combination and everything. And so it was hard to get a run on him on the back stretch. So it's especially hard when he's right in front of you. You know what I mean? He's on the top, like Nick said, using the whole track. So I had to let him know I was there. I wasn't going to the inside because I couldn't get him there, but I gave him a tap coming out of turn 2 on the back stretch and got him a little bit loose, I think. And then after that, I started protecting the bottom. I wouldn't say protecting the bottom, but leaving the lane on the outside. And once he was doing that, it took me still a few laps to get there, but I finally was able to get there. And, I mean, I love racing with Kevin. He's always been very clean with me.
The power of social media, we're going back, is like say on Facebook, he commented it was a hell of a race and way to go, Dustin. So,
Yeah.
and that's the guy like you say you beat on the last lap, right?
Yeah.
So, and Nick, I give credit. I've coached hockey, I've coached lacrosse, so I volunteer my time. There's a lot of people out there that volunteer their time to help out with sports, but I'm really learning that me coaching hockey or lacrosse doesn't compare to the volunteering of guys who are helping working on cars. What's one of the biggest reasons you do it?
One of the biggest reasons I do it,
Other than passion.
I really enjoy doing it, and I'm really teaching them, and that's
Is he a good student?
for the most part. If I can get rid of that cell phone.
You'd be fine. Hey, do like hockey does. As soon as they get on the bus, it goes in a basket and they can't touch it till they get to the hotel.
Yeah.
So, but Mom, is a question. If there was a fairy godmother that came and said, okay, here's so much money to run Dustin's car next year, is there a certain series that you'd race and more or less for Dustin to do it full time?
You know, those calls are generally made by Brett because he's obviously more familiar with the series that are out there, and you know, trying to decide what's the best fit for Dustin, what's the best learning, what's the best exposure. So I particularly can't answer that because I just go with, you know, Brett's judgment call because I believe in what, you know, what he's doing.
You just see, here's the bank account, what you're allowed to spend.
Yeah. But and I honestly believe so far the decisions that he's made are the right decisions, and he has certainly second guessed himself with you know, different series this year. He hasn't second guessed himself as far as Dustin's ability and or
Being able to compete.
being able to compete. He has second guessed this year when we ran ICAR, the Northern Tour. You know what? Dustin's done phenomenal, excellent tour. But we've realized, okay, we needed to step it up and give this boy more horsepower, better competing car. So not second guessing again, his decision, Dustin's ability, the teamwork, learning as we're going that if we do this tour again next year, now we know what to bring to the table. So again, I don't make those judgment calls. Brett makes those decisions, and I respect his decisions, and we go with it.
No, it's something that can, I don't know, with Brett not here, I don't know, being crew chief and dealing with the car is something, I know Oscar is a great series, but unfortunately it's 1,600 miles, more or less there and back for a trip. So it's something, and I'm not trying to, again, Oscar is great, but for living in Northern Ontario, for Dustin, it's better to do iCar maybe compared to, just because location-wise,
Logistics.
logistics.
What would I say?
Yeah.
Uh,
You're in charge of the car,
I
but
would like him to go back to Oscar, to tell you the truth. That's
Yeah.
my opinion, but I have nothing to do with that.
you hold the wrenches and fix the car.
Kind of, sorry.
Yeah. So you were saying you think your coolest moment was your first feature win at, like I say, down at Cornfest at Laird?
Yeah, well, my first heat win actually, because that was my first ever win, that one. And I think there was probably 50 people. I think Nick was the first. Nick and George Wilson were the first two people out there on the track, and high fives and everything. And there must have been 50 people on the track. There's still a picture. I don't know where it is. There's a picture on Facebook, I believe, of all the people around the car. And I mean, all I wanted to do was carry the checker flag around. I didn't realize 50 people were going to jump on top of the car, but it was pretty amazing.
No, do you still strap the skates on in the winter?
Oh yeah. I love hockey, and people say to me,
My question is,
Isn't it
before you
dangerous?
say it, what's better, Stanley Cup or winning Daytona? If you had a choice.
I don't know. I'd rather win the Daytona, but some people are different. I mean, I love hockey too, and I there's no adrenaline like racing though. It's unbelievable. Skating down the ice and getting hit, that's pretty big adrenaline. But
Yeah, we know you like to be in the
coming to
penalty
full
box.
stop. Yeah, I like being in the
Yeah,
penalty
I know
box.
that.
I don't like being in the penalty box, but you know, I
You
don't-
take after Nick when he's on
Sometimes just make your way
the
there.
track, right?
Yeah.
So next week we have JP DiPaggio, I call him Hothead, and Kyle Jarrett,
The Bay Street Roller.
Bay Street Roller. I think more
That's what
Hothead
I-
is better than Bay Street Roller. But if there's something I would need to ask him, what would you say it would be?
Agio, Kyle Jarrett. I don't know. Those two are characters, eh?
He's in the pod.
They've always been good friends of mine and Nick's and our families and everything. And Jay just got into. I was talking about Agio. One thing about him is he's. I think he's kind of new to the sport. I think so. I don't know what his history is. But, I know when I'm not racing, he's the guy I want to go to his house and help out get his car ready because he has so much emotion and passion for the sport. It's unbelievable. We get in the truck, all he talks about is racing. He's so excited. I mean, I was sitting there waiting for him one time. He was in the shower. I was downstairs playing pool. And all you hear is him, "Let's go racing!" He's yelling. He's so excited that day of racing. It's so funny. And he's got his music blasting on the highway on the way down. He's just so excited. And it's awesome to see him do well because he
And
has so much passion for
that
the
helps
sport.
for the crowds too, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Dustin, is there some people you'd like to thank before we wrap it up?
I want to thank all my sponsors, Union Cab and Limousine, Millen Transport, Wardlaw Heating and Cooling, Frankie's Towing, Project Track Champion Access Motorsports, Pro North Roofing, Stuff.ca. If I missed anybody, I'm sorry, but I gotta thank Nick Kozak, my mom, Diane, yourself, my dad, Terry Burdash, Terry McClellan, Kevin Michael, Rob Sartini, my buddy Mitch McMillan, he's been helping out this year. Everybody that helps out is awesome, and I appreciate everything that they do.
Well, Dustin, I can't thank you enough, and good rest of this season and your future. Thank you, Nick. And thank you very much, Debbie.
Thank you.